I have some incredible news if you're a Los Angeles Clippers fan and even if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan. So before we get to the content, do me a favor and smack that like button for the YouTube algorithm. We're also giving away multiple copies of NBA 2K22. All you have to do to enter is follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and bam, you're entered. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Today was a wild day in NBA free agency in regards to multiple faces of the NBA. And let's start all the way in the East because the Brooklyn Nets have officially agreed to sign Kevin Durant to a 4-year, $198 million contract extension after he becomes eligible on Saturday. This would take Kevin Durant all the way to his age 36 season, and if he stays with the Brooklyn Nets during the entirety of that time, would make the Brooklyn Nets his second longest tenured team throughout his entire career. This is without a doubt a no-brainer for both sides. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, if you have the opportunity to retain a player like Kevin Durant for the next 4 years, you have to pounce on that opportunity because Kevin Durant's without a doubt the best player they've been able to acquire on their roster over the past decade plus. Meanwhile, if you're Kevin Durant, a lot of you guys might be wondering, why doesn't he just continue to sign 1-year maxes with a 1-year player option? Well, when you're a player that's coming off of an Achilles tear, you want as much stability as humanly possible. Kevin Durant's an extremely tall dude, and hopefully he stays healthy throughout the next 4 years, but honestly, there's no way for us to truly predict that. He tore his Achilles last year, and you never know what his longevity is going to be. So in this instance, Kevin Durant is guaranteed to at least make nearly $200 million with the Brooklyn Nets. If anything bad happens to him within the next 4 years, he is still set. Honestly, even if he didn't make this money, he would still be set. But just speaking from a business perspective, this was the best move for Kevin Durant and also the Brooklyn Nets, and should keep the Brooklyn Nets relevant for a very long time. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Nets fan how you feel about this, as we switch all the way over to the West Coast. As Los Angeles Clipper fans, tell me how you feel, man, because I know a lot of you guys were holding your breath and were very concerned about what was to become of Kawhi Leonard. This is a player that essentially had the power to completely ruin your franchise for the next decade. After 2 years ago, coming to the Clippers and saying, hey, I will sign with you guys if you go ahead and get Paul George on your team. And in order to do that, the Los Angeles Clippers had to give up 5 future first-round picks to get Paul George on their team. And then Kawhi Leonard said, okay, now that you have Paul George on your team, I'll sign. And they're completely devoid of being able to trade for any other star players as a result of that. And I was actually very worried that Kawhi Leonard may have looked at the roster and say, hey, we have Paul George, we have Marcus Morris that was signed last year to a 4-year, $64 million contract. And we also have Luke Kennard, who hasn't done much for us, who is a significantly less productive player than Marcus Morris, that is making the same exact amount of money as Marcus Morris. We don't have a playmaker. We don't have that much room to improve, but the Los Angeles Clippers were able to retain the services of Kawhi Leonard, according to Chris B. Haynes, a man that is really starting to emerge in the NBA insider world. He was the first to break this news, and as far as I'm concerned, the only one to break this news. Shams and Woj haven't gotten onto it yet. So free agent star Kawhi Leonard has decided that he is re-signing with the Los Angeles Clippers, and the terms are being discussed. This is not the only piece of Los Angeles Clippers news we got today. We also found out that they were able to retain the services of Reggie Jackson today on a very nice and flexible 2-year, $22 million deal to return to the Los Angeles Clippers as soon as allowable at 6 p.m. Eastern. This deal is the maximum the Clippers can pay Reggie Jackson under current CBA rules. This makes a ton of sense, honestly. When you're a player like Reggie Jackson, who had the start to his career that already did, absolutely crushing it with the OKC Thunder, looking like a player that has next, that deserves to be a starter on a team, then gets traded to the Detroit Pistons and looks like a shell of his former self before re-finding his niche with the Los Angeles Clippers. Once you find a place that allows you to play to the best of your ability, you need to do whatever it takes to stay there, because you never know. The NBA is very volatile. You could go to a different team that doesn't really know how to get the best out of you, and it looks like Reggie understands that. Congrats to the young man for getting paid, but that's not the only move the Los Angeles Clippers made today. This team has been wheeling and dealing all day, as Adrian Wojnarowski also reports that free agent guard/forward Justice Winslow has agreed on a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Clippers. His agents Austin Brown and Erica Ruiz of CAA Basketball tell ESPN. Justice Winslow's NBA career has been very interesting, to say the least. Like, bear in mind, whenever I think of Justice Winslow, I think of the Boston Celtics being willing to give up 3 first-round picks or 4 first-round picks, I forget the exact amount, for the opportunity to trade with the Charlotte Hornets to select Justice Winslow, which the Charlotte Hornets declined so they could draft Frank Kaminsky. And by the way, none of those players are on their original teams anymore. Michael Jordan, you're a very interesting man as a general manager, but Justice Winslow eventually gets drafted by the Miami Heat. It was with them since he was 19 and had an okay start to his career, but his real peak of his career was the 2018 to 2019 season, his age 22 season, when he averaged 12 points per game to go with like 5 rebounds per game and was a 38% three-point shooter. He wasn't necessarily the greatest player, very role player-esque in my opinion. He had a PER of 12.8. Offensively, he was a little bit of a liability with a negative 1.3 OBPM and a 0.7 DBPM. So he did have good defensive potential. Eventually, he would get traded to the Memphis Grizzlies, and he just really wasn't able to succeed in Memphis, averaging 6.8 points per game. Wasn't really a good three-point shooter at all, shooting 19% from 3. He only got about 20 minutes per game, but Justice Winslow is now looking for a fresh start to his career on a team that he gets to choose, which is the Los Angeles Clippers. He will be backing up Kawhi Leonard and Nick Batum most probably. He's a very versatile player and has a very good opportunity to really boost his value now that Kawhi Leonard is most likely out for the start of the season for I don't even know how long. Kawhi Leonard could be out for the entirety of the year for all you know. So if you're a Los Angeles Clippers fan, there's a lot of good news coming out of today. You don't have Kawhi Leonard completely pillaging your team and then running off to a team like the Golden State Warriors. You're able to retain some of your good role players, and in addition to that, you're able to add another very good role player that would fit in with your team. So if you're a Clipper fan, let me know how you feel, man, in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.